And welcome back to our worst first preview here on hoopslounge.com. Today's episode, we're going 8th overall in the Western Conference. That means they make the playoffs. We have the Utah Jazz, who last year had a 38-44 record. Not much changeover on this team. An addition of Canadian big man Trey Lyles, who they drafted. Justin, this is a team that a lot of people are really high on. Ever since the trade of Enes Kanter to the OKC Thunder last year, the evolution of Rudy Gobert and his pairing with one of my favorite players in the league. I mean, I would say Derek Favors is one, but then I'm just looking at that whole roster and I'm just like, I just really like this team. Now, they're young, they're athletic, they're long. We have them 8th overall. That's in the playoffs, and they just jumped over the likes of Phoenix and Dallas. Do you think this team, because I think this counts, has the wherewithal and the maturity to continue that and not have the young player rookie jitters there?
I think they do. I think they are getting really good coaching as well from Quinn Snyder. There's tons of defensive potential there. I think Gordon Hayward's probably one of the more underappreciated players in the NBA. He's top small forward by basically any metric. Gobert and Favors together is a really good defensive tandem. So when you have your foundation set in defense, it's going to allow you to survive a few hiccups offensively. So when I look at them, I do think they do have the potential to make the playoffs. The one thing that really does make me nervous about them is I felt they needed to get a veteran point guard prior to the season, and then Dante Exum goes out, and now he's out for the year. So you're stuck basically with Trey Burks. You do have Alec Burks coming back, and I think he can play some in a facilitating role to some extent, but overall they really need to go out and get themselves a point guard. I think they do that, and that's a large part of why I think they're going to make the playoffs and why I have them as the 8th seed. But that is a glaring hole that they really need to address.
Absolutely agree with you there. And it was a bit surprising there wasn't more news around them and Ty Lawson, I felt, considering Ty Lawson was let go for not so much. I mean, this is a team that I completely agree with you. We had on our previous episode, speaking of Phoenix, maybe do they move a guy like Eric Bledsoe? Would that not be a nice home? My worry always with young players who are building up, as we saw in our previous shows with Orlando, with Milwaukee and such. Do they have the guy, do you think, maybe one or two of them, who are going to be that superstar? Because to me, if you're growing players who are going to be good players, that's cool. But this is a superstar league, right? You need one of those. So I know what people are going to think right away. Rudy Gobert, defensive stalwart, sure. But who's going to consistently score the rock on this team? Because I personally think, and I know a lot of people aren't going to agree, that we've seen kind of a cap out of Gordon Hayward. I'm just putting it out there.
I would disagree with that. Gobert obviously would be the best candidate right now for a superstar. I think Dante Exum does have some starter potential. I'm pretty high on him long term, although we won't be seeing him this year. Gordon Hayward has continuously improved every season in the NBA. If you need a reliable scorer, he's about as good as it gets. He just does so many things. He's a 5x5 threat a lot of nights. And Alec Burks is also a really underappreciated scorer. He did miss last season, or the bulk of last season, but he's a really, really dynamic scorer that a lot of people overlook at the shooting guard position. Given how shallow talent is in the league at shooting guard, it's funny that a guy as talented as him and has been as successful as him is continuously overlooked. So I think they are able to get scoring. Defense is the most important thing still in the NBA. It's half the game. All the top teams play defense at a high level. So I think it's possible for them to have enough team scoring with Hayward, with Burks, with Exum when he comes back. Favors is a pretty good offensive player too, and Gobert, once he matures, is probably going to given his gifts, you would assume that he's going to, at the very least, be a very good pick and roll threat. So I think they will be able to muster up enough offense.
All right. Well, seems to be it's a little bit more scoring as committee than maybe Alpha Dog and Alpha B. But I do agree with you. I think Alex Burks, I've been a huge fan of his ability. Like, guys who can ball handle and create their own shots who are not point guards, for me, are always a big deal. And I think part of it, as soon as they drafted Dante Exum, a lot of people just wrote off Alex Burks. They assumed Dante Exum would be the next 2 guard and stopped giving him a lot of praise and time. And that coincided with his injury. You know, your fanfare and your 50 minutes of fame drops quickly. I was always kind of looking forward to a backcourt of Exum and them two together, like 2 6'5", 6'6" guys who can both ball handle, both play make. It just seems dynamic. And again, Hayward's a good passer, and then you have that front court that just stops everyone. And like you're alluding to with the Gobert, very athletic. You know, his offense, even if he never develops a go-to move, he's quick and agile enough to play that Tyson Chandler kind of just lob city play, get his 10 points, couple offensive rebounds. Just if he can start hitting, hit free throws at a decent rate and get those putbacks, there's going to be enough scoring around. So I'll say one thing. Do you think, because we're talking about trades, we're talking about veterans, and I know the easy call is to say there's going to be, a bench veteran at point guard or another position because they've got enough talent. But when you look at this team, maybe they're looking forward to a new salary cap. This is a lot of mouths to feed salary-wise. I mean, Gobert is going to need some money. Fairey's going to need some money, and I know the cap's going up. But do you think they consolidate any of this talent, or do you think the additions are merely kind of veteran blue guy pieces and they let them grow organically?
I think there's going to be a lot of organic growth, especially just looking at the history of how Utah typically operates. I think scoring by committee can work. You need to have someone that can be a number one option kind of in crunch time, and I think Hayward has stepped up in the past, and he's kind of been the closer for them. We've seen some of the best offenses in the league, like the Spurs. They score by committee for the most part, although that might change with LaMarcus Aldridge being added to the team. But they might consolidate some of the talent. I can see them moving Trey Burks. As high as we are on Trey Lyles, that's obviously a very attractive piece that they could use to bring in an impact player. But really, they just need to add depth. They need to find out exactly what they have in Gobert, in Favors, and build around the known commodities that they have there, those known building blocks. So they're probably a couple of years away from being a contender, but the foundation is there. There's reason to believe that this team can have a high upside moving forward. All
right. And as we like to do, we like to talk about speculative trades. So to end this segment, I'll throw one your way because it kind of just you got my interest going with the Trey Lyles potentially on the bandwagon, on the trade block. He's Canadian. Toronto Raptors need a stretch 4. Maybe they need a bit of youth in the backcourt. Mm-hmm. Could you envision something with a Dante Exum, Trey Lyles, Kyle Lowry? You can have other pieces, but that kind of a base.
Yeah, I could definitely see something like that. I think Kyle Lowry would be a really good fit for Utah. He is older. I don't think they move Exum in that deal. I think you have Lowry there to kind of mentor him. Maybe a Trey Lyles, Trey Burke, and draft picks for Kyle Lowry and Terrence Ross or something like that. I could see a move like that. I think the experience of getting to the playoffs is going to be really big for this team. So they do need to be proactive and try to find that point guard that's going to be able to lead them and mentor Exum, even if he is just sitting on the bench. Having a veteran around to help point things out and film study would do a lot for him and his career moving forward.
I agree, and I'll end the show with how I started it. I don't understand how Lawson is not on this team. Anyways, let us know.
Yeah,
you don't agree?
No, Utah's a very character-driven team. When you have someone with multiple DUIs and a lot of character concerns, which is why he was available for so cheap, I can't see Utah being a team that had any interest in Ty Lawson.
Well, fair enough. It sounds between that and their scoring by committee, we're seeing a potential new generation San Antonio Spurs. So for all you Utah Jazz fans out there, you agree or disagree with what we're saying, please leave the comments below. And from Justin and I, thanks for joining. We'll catch you next time, worst to first, here on hoopsnotch.com.